The Wedding of Distinction podcast is brought to you by weddingstylesofct.com.
Welcome to the Wedding of Distinction podcast, a program for the unique bride and groom. The Wedding of Distinction is a concept where brides and grooms want something better. Not just your average wedding. We have the tools to make that happen. Now, here's your host, Mike Fernino.
I cordially welcome you to my podcast designed for couples who are planning their big day. On today's program, I speak with the owner of Gateway Limousine from Connecticut. You know, wedding transportation really is a lot more than just getting from point A to point B. It has evolved into part of the wedding day experience itself. Now, sure, you want to get to the church in style. You want to arrange for relatives to get transported to and from the hotel, and you want to get home after the reception, after an evening of intense partying. But now with some of these amazing limousine buses, it's like traveling to your wedding in a nightclub. You and your wedding party having the time of your lives, and the reception hasn't even started yet. But get the wrong limousine company, outdated limos, outdated vehicles, bad maintenance, and an unreliable staff, and the party could turn into a nightmare really fast. Mark discusses the long history of Gateway Limousine and their impeccable reputation for safety, reliability, and luxury. Today on the Wedding of Distinction podcast.
Hi, good afternoon. Mark DiChiara, Gateway Limousines.
Hey, Mark, and I'm Mike Fernino, the Wedding of Distinction. Here he is, the man with the cars. Mark, how are you doing today? Thank you for a little time coming on my cheesy little podcast. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mark is with Gateway Limousine, and they've got a bunch of cars. And so this wedding program, obviously, we're attracting brides and grooms. And so nothing is more important on your wedding day than getting from point A to point B. And there's many different ways to do it, but why not do it in style? It's your wedding day. So this guy's going to tell you all about it. Gateway has a whole bunch of vehicles. I believe, if I'm incorrect, let me know. Everything from a 2-seater Lexus all the way up to a 30-person bus. Right, Mark?
That is correct. That is correct, Mike. Yes.
So we're going to just start with reputation and how long you've been doing this, and just a little bit about what people say about Gateway.
So the company started in '89. So we're going to be celebrating in May of this year our 36th anniversary. Founded in Waterbury and still in Waterbury, but we pretty much service a good swath of the state, especially with the wedding market. We typically can see weddings statewide. So we really aren't limited in the service area with Connecticut. The thing that I think is probably the point I want to stress the most is trust. So, you want to have trust in any of the vendors you're going to hire for your wedding. Obviously, most important day of your life, or one of the most important. So, how do you know? Obviously, everybody's going to say, oh, you can trust us. We do a great job. Ours is very verifiable. Two sites that we're independent of any control of reviews on, but yet are very helpful in helping a couple planning their wedding to start narrowing their list of people they want to talk to. So, weddingwire.com and the Knot. I can tell you that on WeddingWire, that platform. We have 640 reviews with a 4.9 satisfaction rating. And on the Knot, we have 173 with a 4.8. I can guarantee you that there's not another limousine transportation company in Connecticut that has that type of a rating. So when we say trust and verify, well, there's the verification. Other couples' experiences with our service. So that's... Yeah. I think that's the first thing I'd like people to be aware of, and ways to, kind of filter through who do you want to make that call to interview as your vendors.
Right. Because nothing would ruin a wedding day more, Mark, than being stuck on the side of the road with your vehicle broken down.
It definitely would set the tone for the day, right? And we're one of the first vendors that you're going to encounter on your wedding day, because we're the ones that are going to be getting you from wherever you're getting ready to your ceremony and then on to your reception.
Right now, Mark, do you also go outside of Connecticut, New York City, the New York area, Mass, Rhode Island? Where's the limit of the territory as far as your service?
When we're talking about weddings, Mike, it's going to be pretty much the state of Connecticut. New York has some regulatory rules that we abide by where we cannot be in New York exclusively. So, in other words, we can't pick up somebody in New York and stay exclusively in New York. Now, we do have clients that, will have a wedding over the border, but we've started in Connecticut someplace and then they've ended in either New York or Massachusetts or Rhode Island. But for the most part, our main focus or our main service base when it comes to weddings is pretty much in Connecticut.
And we're going to expand outside of weddings too, because I know that there are bachelorette parties or wine crawls or other events that are related to and associated with the wedding, in which wedding parties and brides and grooms to be could definitely utilize your services as well.
Absolutely. So, in addition to the day itself, what are some of the other things that we've done for our clients? Airport transportation. So maybe there's folks flying in, out of town relatives, family, friends that need to get from the airport into the area of the wedding. So that's an option that we can always help with. You mentioned the bachelor and bachelorette parties. We've had a lot of opportunity to help clients with those. The wine tours are something that's been very popular, especially for the bachelorette parties. And then the brew pubs is a great way for a bachelor party to kick off. So we've done a lot of those. Another thing that we've had the opportunity to do for clients is the rehearsal dinner. So there's been times, Mike, that there's a big contingency of people that have traveled in from out of state. And that rehearsal dinner kind of morphs into almost like a pre-reception. So, it's a good icebreaker for people that may not have seen each other or may not know each other to get familiar and mingle and reconnect. So that's certainly another service that we provide. And then honeymoon, so now we've gotten married and, everybody's kind of shedding the effects of the night before. And who wants to drive us to the airport? Well, we don't want to drive ourselves to the airport or to the cruise ship. And all of our friends are in the same condition we're in, so they don't want to either. So that's another opportunity for us to help you.
And Mark, I'm going to reminisce a little bit. I'm going to go way back to the earlier 90s when I got married. And I just kind of talk a little bit about how the transportation process, the vehicles themselves have changed. When I had my wedding, we had the stretch Ford limousines. We had a white 6, a black 6, and a black 8. We had 3 cars for the wedding party because that's what was in at that particular time. The stretch limos. How has it changed since 30 years ago?
Yeah, so good question, Mike. And the stretch limos are really I don't want to say they're obsolete, but they're close to obsolete. First of all, they're not made anymore. So, the only coach builders building any type of limousines now are pretty much exclusive to the funeral industry. And we certainly don't want to confuse the wedding and a funeral.
Nope.
So those are being phased out. Now we still have a couple limousines in our fleet, but we've been pivoting and transitioning to more of the limo bus style vehicles. Those have been really well received. People really like them a lot, and the plus on those. First of all, for all the ladies, they're not crawling into a limousine and trying to make their way down, kind of duck walking to their seat. inside a stretch limo. You're upright and you're walking into a vehicle and sitting down. Much easier. So that's one of the first advantages. The second thing is, we have the whole wedding party together. So that celebration really starts, as soon as we're on board. Now, we do have clients that still like the more traditional arrival at the church, and what we've done in cases like that is maybe we'll use a limousine to get the bride and her parents to the church, and then the limo bus simultaneously will be picking up the groom and the bridesmaids and getting them to the church, and then from church, now the whole wedding party, including bride and groom, are in that bus with all their friends in the wedding party, and that limousine now becomes useful to get the parents, grandparents, or anyone else that may need to get to the reception. So, yeah, it really has changed, and the limo buses have really kind of taken over. We have probably the biggest fleet of limo buses in Connecticut. And we have a great variety of sizes. So, the first ones, and I always caution people, when I say caution people, the seating capacity on these vehicles are set by the DOT. It's overstated. So if you see something that says it's a 30-passenger limo bus, I'm going to tell you that's probably more comfortable for a wedding scenario with 26 people, because everybody's dressed formally. You don't want anybody right on top of you and, kind of wrinkling your dress or your tuxedo. So that being said, we have 14-passenger Mercedes Sprinter limo buses. We usually advise 10 to 12 in those. Then we go up to the next size limo bus, which are 24-passenger. Again, we're going to say 20 to 22 in those size vehicles comfortably. And then on the 30s, we're going to tell you, that's probably 26 comfortably. But that usually kind of checks the box for most size wedding parties.
Talk about the amenities, because I've had it where, the buses have pulled up to the venue. I'm the DJ. I'm coming out to see the bride and groom and welcome them. The doors open and there's it's like a nightclub inside. There's like light shows and all kinds of stuff. The wedding party doesn't even want to leave these buses. They're just amazing. Talk about the amenities that Gateway has in your vehicles.
Right. So, and you're absolutely spot on. I mean, they do look like mini nightclubs on wheels, and between the lighting. There's ice wells in the vehicles. We usually, stock those obviously with ice, bottled waters, champagne. There's glasswares in the vehicle. The entertainment systems in those vehicles really will, kind of shake the windows, if you will. And the thing that's become really popular now as well is, they're all Bluetooth capable. So maybe you have a playlist that, that's near and dear to your heart that you want to have on that day. Just Bluetooth connect and you're off and running. So absolutely, those vehicles are, as you mentioned, like mini nightclubs.
And so now a bride and groom are putting together all of their plans. And this is just what I've noticed. I'm not sure if it works this way all the time, but it seems like the limo is one of the later individual pieces of the puzzle. When a bride and groom are putting together, they obviously have to pick their date. They have to get their venue, photography, DJ, things like that. And then, we got to get the limo. When's a good time to book? Because there are certain times of the year, May and June come to mind, where you've got proms and other activities that are going to compete and take away some of those available cars from the wedding people too, right, Mark?
Absolutely. So, the wedding dynamic has really changed over the years as well. I'm sure you've seen it yourself, Mike. Now we see people having receptions on Thursdays as well as, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. The most high demand time slot that we see for a wedding is a Saturday night wedding. That seems to be, the holy grail, if you will, of the time slot. So what does that mean? It means that we're with them in the afternoon, Saturday afternoon. So if you're planning a Saturday evening wedding and you're going to need transportation in the afternoon, 6 to 8 months is if you want to get what you want rather than settle for what's left. That's the timeline, especially with, as you mentioned, May and June. Not only is it weddings, but it's proms and graduations. All of these things, have demand on the types of vehicles that we're talking about now. So I would say, 6 to 8 months is great if you can do it. Now, that being said, and it's great you asked about the planning side of things too. So, we're not just a company that says, yeah, you want to do a wedding? This is our wedding package, and this is how much it is for this long. On the contrary, we're going to ask a ton of questions because, we've gained experience over 36 years. So, we've done a lot of weddings in that time. So you may not have thought of something that we take for granted as, oh, we can do this for you. And I can't tell you how many times people go, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, yeah, that sounds great. So, our reservation staff is really kind of focused in on, starting with a lot of questions, figuring out what's, where everyone is logistically, how can we make all of this work and maximize the use of the vehicles. So, a perfect example. Where's the groom and in relation to the ceremony? Where's the bride in relation to the ceremony? Is there an opportunity to use one vehicle to get both of those groups separately, of course, but both of those groups to the ceremony? So that's the first thing that we're kind of looking at, and then going from there. Now, the other dynamic that I may have mentioned this before. Yeah, I know I did, about, the limousines and some brides having a more traditional desire for her arrival. So, that we try and make suggestions when we're pairing vehicles as to, what's the best way to get the most value out of the money you're spending. So that's something I think we do very well with. And again, I'm gonna go back to our reviews. We didn't earn those reviews by accident. People didn't spend a good amount of money on transportation and then just very haphazardly write a review. I mean, there was an impression made, and that's really what we're after. So the planning process, that's our reservation staff. But then we're in the field. So now we're with the chauffeurs. So, these chauffeurs have been trained on some really, best practices. So what do I mean? Well, I can't tell you how many thank you cards or reviews we've gotten where, a bride will mention that the last person in the back of the church with her was the chauffeur, and he spread her train. She goes, I never expected that. Well, no, you didn't, because you thought you just hired somebody to, give you a ride to your wedding. And then the other thing we've trained our chauffeurs to do is, okay, now that bride has just started down the aisle. Now he's going to kind of stand guard at the back door of the church so that the photographer who's standing up on the altar taking a picture of the bride coming at her, his photo isn't ruined by somebody opening those back doors and getting blasted by sunlight. So, it's these little things that we've learned over the years that I think compel people afterwards to reach out either with a thank you card or a review, because we did something that they just didn't expect us to do.
Exceeding expectations is a fantastic thing. Mark, would you please provide the information for Gateway Limousine to the listeners of the program? How can they get in contact with you, phone numbers, and all that good stuff?
So phone number 203-753-LIMO, which is 5466. So again, 203-753-5466. As far as our website, that would be www.gatewaylimos.com.
Fantastic. Mark, I want to thank you for your time. That was great information. It was a fun ride. And you noticed the little thing I did there. But anyway, I do appreciate your time. And I hope you have a fantastic season as we enter into another wedding season coming up.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you. All the best to you. And we look forward to hearing from your brides.
We hope you are enjoying the podcast. Your Wedding of Distinction host, Mike Fernino, is a 30-year veteran of the wedding industry as a professional DJ and master of ceremonies. As the founder of Music in Motion Entertainment, Mike has worked with thousands of couples over the years, creating dynamic and exceptional events that stand out in the eyes and ears of the wedding guests. Music in Motion is a full-time professional wedding service based in Connecticut and serving the surrounding states, also offering photography, custom lighting design, videography, photo booth, and live classical and jazz musicians. Call 203-627-9600 and ask for their wedding e-brochure or visit their website at musicandmotionentertainment.com.
This here is a remarkable,
The Wedding of Distinction podcast is a production of Music in Motion Entertainment. All rights reserved. Any unauthorized publication of this program is strictly prohibited. For the Wedding of Distinction podcast, I'm Mike Vincent. Happy wedding planning, everybody.